Hello everyone, it's Emma and welcome back to my channel today. Today is a spontaneous video because I was just out with my dog on a walk and I stumbled upon something interesting. This giant pumpkin that is bigger than my head. Just as a disclaimer, this is not a guide. Do not follow this video as a guide. This is an experiment. I would honestly guess it to be about 20 pounds. I'm not very good about judging that sort of stuff, but it maxes out my kitchen scale and my kitchen scale goes to 12 pounds. As you can tell by the title of this video, today I'm going to be experimenting with some canning. I'm going to be showing you how to can your food, how to preserve your food, and how to save your food from going to landfill. So first off, I'd like to touch on why saving your food from landfill is important. And that is because when we put our food in landfill, I touched on this in a few videos. I touched on this in our bioplastic video and also the video on the Christmas trees. When we send our food to landfill, it actually creates methane, and methane is actually 23 times more potent than CO2. And oftentimes we think that CO2 is the most deadly gas when it comes to climate change, but really, methane is the real killer here. So when we send our food to the landfill, it sits there, it ferments, and then eventually it gets released into the atmosphere. Someone in my neighborhood was about to send this bad boy to the landfill. And look, it's in perfectly good condition. Like, it's not rotten at all. It's probably leftover from Thanksgiving, leftover from Halloween, and they're like, this was decoration, I'm gonna toss it. But pumpkins are food, and I think that's something that in our American culture we don't think about. We think of pumpkins as decoration. Pumpkins are actually a variety of squash, and we don't really associate the two. We think of pumpkins and squash are separate. They're really the same, and we can eat squash because we eat butternut squash, we eat spaghetti squash. It's really the same. When you buy pumpkin puree in the store, it's literally just this bad boy in a can. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna oven roast this, I'm gonna puree it, and then I'm gonna can it. Since somebody probably bought this for Halloween, I would imagine, it probably needs to be consumed or prepared right now or very, very soon. As much as I would love to have it like roasted over the next few weeks, I probably need to prepare it right now, which is why I'm going to try to can it, as well as I want to show you how you can preserve your own food, especially when it comes to things like pumpkins. So that way this year, after Thanksgiving, after Christmas, you can preserve your own pumpkins and things like that, as well as next year after Halloween, you can preserve your own pumpkins. And it doesn't have to stop with pumpkins. You can also do this with green beans, with tomatoes, with peppers, with onions, with corn. You can preserve so many things. I'm going to leave some great articles linked down below when it comes to preserving with canning. I did a lot of this stuff growing up. I lived on a big farm. Shout out to my mom for really getting me introduced to canning when I was young. We did a lot of canning of green beans and we canned our own salsa. It was so much fun to do that stuff growing up. Really thankful that I was introduced to that at a young age. And now I'm gonna try doing it myself. So when I was young, I was very thankful that we had a pressure cooker, which was like cheat code for canning. I don't have a pressure cooker, so I'm gonna have to read a few articles to learn how to do this. But anyway, step one is preparing the pumpkin. What I have to do first, I'm going to do what Coco Shin did in our Thanksgiving Friendsgiving collaboration. What she did was I think she cut it into like in half, or did she roast the whole thing? Just as an experiment. I really don't think this is gonna fit. No, he is too tall. And seriously, I think I mentioned this in my anti-Halloween video. I just really hate Halloweens for decoration for a lot of reasons, because people buy them in order to rot. But pumpkins are food for this exact reason. Not to mention, when you buy pumpkins on our little island here, they come from the United States. Some farmer grew this in the United States for it to get shipped 8,000 miles across the ocean for someone to throw it away. If that doesn't make you as mad as it makes me, like, so much emissions went into this. The land use, the water use, probably fertilizer, the gas that had to be used to ship this over here. And someone was just like, nope, I'm tossing it. And it's not even rotten yet. I really went on a tangent. The point is, I'm probably gonna cut this in half. I'm gonna de-seed it. I'm not gonna season, oil it, anything. I'm just gonna roast it, probably face down. I'm totally making this up, so that way it gets nice and tender. And then I'm going to take the skin off. I'm just going off of memory of how I watched Coco, how she made her pie. And then I'm gonna take the skin off, I'm gonna compost the skin, and then I'm gonna puree it. And then I'm going to do the canning. I'll probably do the canning tonight after dinner. So let's get to preparing the pumpkin. Finally, long intro. I also have a video linked up here as to why you should also meal plan, meal prep, and how I do that, as to why I prevent food waste in the first place, because it's important to also do that, as to plan to not have any food scraps. But if you do end up having an extra pumpkin, or if you do have extra green beans, how you can save that stuff for later use. Because we also have a bunch of bags of beans that we got from someone who is moving that I'm going to also try to can those too throughout the course of the week if I have enough jars. I have a lot of resources I will leave linked above and below about how to prevent food waste, because preventing food waste not only is great for the environment, but it is great for just the people in general, because obviously there are people starving throughout the world. So we in privileged nations shouldn't just be throwing food into the landfill, because that is extremely wasteful, not to mention it will save you money as well. I hope you learned something valuable from this introduction. Let's get to making the pie. Also, let me know down below, have you ever canned preserved food before? I've never done fruit ever before. I've only ever preserved vegetables. So I'm interested to see if anyone's done fruit. Is it different than vegetables? I have lots of questions. If you've done pressure cooker versus non-pressure cooker, which is best? Pressure cooker versus not pressure cooker. Have you done what's Instant Pot? Is that just a pressure cooker? I have so many questions. Definitely educate me down below. Okay, let's just get to doing this pumpkin. I'm very scared to cut into it. I think that's why I'm procrastinating. Let's go. Just look at this thing. It's bigger than my cutting board. I really hope it's not rotten inside. I think that's what I'm most scared of. Is that like I get all hyped up, I get all excited for this free pumpkin, saving food waste, gonna try preserving food for myself for the first time ever, and then it's bad on the inside. Actually, no, I'm actually most scared of cutting myself. Oh yeah, grand reveal. Not only the environmental cost of shipping pumpkins over here, but the physical cost. Because of the environmental cost of shipping pumpkins over here, they cost so much money to buy. Someone literally had to spend like $20. I'm sure it cost at least $20 for this pumpkin, because it's like 20 pounds. See, and I also can't believe that someone literally didn't even carve this. They spent all this time, all this money buying this pumpkin to not only throw away and not eat, but also throw away and not even carve. Now this is interesting. I think some of the seeds are starting to sprout in there. So that's something too that I mentioned in my Halloween anti-haul, is that if you're gonna carve pumpkins, which, I kind of hate because you're gonna waste an entire pumpkin like this, at least roast the seeds, because you're already gonna waste all this flesh, because most of the flesh is gonna rot anyway. You can at least save the seeds, which is good. Don't just throw your seeds away. Well, I thought I was going to be faster at this. If you want to check out some more free ways to live low waste, don't start your oven prematurely, because now my oven is wasting energy. So I'm going to shut my oven off until I'm closer to being ready. I feel like this is where I lose a finger. Please don't be foreshadowing. This is a quarter, and it's already taking up like the whole baking sheet. Can we Tetris this on here? Because I don't have room in my oven. And the pumpkin is done, at least I think. I stabbed it with a fork and it looks pretty tender, so I'm gonna get it out of the oven. Ooh, it looks pretty done. Brown. And then while I was cooking dinner, I prepared some jars. I definitely need to sanitize them, because I just literally scrounged them together, but I had to find a bunch of mason-ish jars with the rings and the lids. I'm totally winging this. I don't really know how I'm gonna get the pumpkin off. Ooh, that looks pretty cool. Let me show you what it looks like. It's really steamy. There she is. I guess we'll take a spoon, we'll get my ice cream scoop again, and then we'll throw it in the blender. I think that should work pretty well. Yeah, that works quite well. It would probably make most sense to work after it's cool, but I'm impatient. I want to get this done before bedtime, so we doing this now. I have to say, this is definitely yellower than canned pumpkin. It reminds me, oh gosh, that smell took me right back to basic training. Like literal flashback. I don't know why. This is already clean. I'm going to put the puree ready to go pumpkin in here while I wait for the jars to be sanitized. Something important to remember while you're blending hot things is to ventilate the top, or else your blender will act like a sealed jar. I'm sure most people already know this, but you don't take it off completely, but I like to just personally hold it on here and create a little vent myself. Here we go. Actually, honestly, since it's so thick, I'm probably gonna need to use my plunger. And pretty much I'm just gonna try to get it as smooth as possible. This is only a quarter of the pumpkin.
A quarter?
This is only a quarter of it.
Holy smoke!
I know!
What are you gonna do with the rest?
Continue to puree it. Okay, 3 cups of pumpkin from 1/4. So I'm gonna end up with 12 cups of pumpkin. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna need more jars. This is only a cup. Is this only a cup? 2 cups. Thank goodness. 2, 4, 6, 8. Are you 4 cups? Yes. The jars I have are already 12 cups. Yes. Beautiful. I don't need to find more jars. That's great. Okay, so I will see you back here once I have pureed all the pumpkin and it is time to sanitize and start the process. So it turns out I probably should have read more before I ended up with 12 cups of pumpkin, because this Living Homegrown says why canned pumpkin puree is a no-no. Here's why it's dangerous. No! Pumpkin is a low-acid food and should never be considered for water bath canning because low-acid foods can harbor and grow bacteria. You can pressure can pumpkin or summer squash in a jar if you process it as cubes. That's definitely what I should have done because I saw a lot of recipes doing that. That's sad. Recommend freezing pumpkin puree. Yes! It's not over yet. This video isn't over. Cause look, I literally have 12 cups of pumpkin. I'm just like, what the heck am I gonna do? I can't eat all this. I can't make 7 pumpkin pies. So what I'm gonna do tonight, well, jars do work well in the freezer if you don't fill them all the way up. I wanna save these jars because I still wanna do canning in this video. I still wanna try preserving myself with my beans. What I'm gonna do, I think, instead, is freeze these in bags because I have a lot of Ziploc bags that we've been given from people who have been moving, and we're moving in 6 months, and I don't really use Ziploc bags very often. So perfect. We're gonna put pumpkin in these bags and freeze it until it's ready to use. This works out great actually because now this video is more diverse. Instead of just canning, this video is more ways to preserve your food than just canning because not everyone has access to a stove. Not everyone has jars, but maybe not also everyone has access to a freezer, and not everyone wants to use plastic bags. This video is diverse now. Well done, me and my mess up. And now you can also learn from my lesson. Don't try to can pumpkin puree. If you've got a 20-pound pumpkin and you want to can it, because you still can, learn from me, folks. So, and then what's most important with freezing or canning any types of preserves, you need to write the date on it, no matter what type of preserving you're doing. Because it's hard to tell your best by date when you're doing things yourself, but this at least tells you when you put it in the freezer, when you put it on your shelf. Especially if like I were to do this again in 6 months, say I got another pumpkin in 6 months and I decided to freeze it again, then I can take the old pumpkin and put it on top. So we actually also did a lot of freezing as when I was a kid too. I like freezing too because you can just stack these bags on top of each other. We did a lot of freezing as a kid too, just because it's another really great way to preserve stuff. One thing we did was zucchini. We would shred weaker zucchinis like crazy. So zucchinis were great. We would shred them and then we would put them in bags similar to this, and we would just throw them in the freezer. We also would do sweet corn. We would grow insane amounts of sweet corn, and then again, we would just, I think it was uncooked, we would just slice it off the cob, throw it in some bags, and then whenever we wanted it, we would throw the bag into the microwave or boil it, and then it was ready to go to have for our meal that night. This reminds me of my childhood and living on a farm, and now I can't wait to have a farm one day. Well, I'm really glad I read that article and I didn't just wing it, because then I probably would have ended up sick. Okay, good morning everyone. I am back and I'm ready to can some chickpeas. I have my jars over here. I had them soaking in soap, a soap solution overnight. I've got my chickpeas that I cooked this morning. So what I'm gonna do, I have the liquid in here. I'm going to actually use the liquid to can them in. So I'm gonna drain the chickpeas into this bowl, and then I'm gonna wash this pot really thoroughly. I mean, I guess I can leave them in there for now. For more zero waste action, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take the soap from the jars so that I don't have to use more soap. While that is preparing, I'm going to read a little bit about this, and hopefully, so a lot of the recipes talk about how to can beans in a pressure cooker, which is fine, but I don't have a pressure cooker. The good news is that I'm gonna eat these chickpeas relatively fast, because I'm already planning on, I already planned to prepare these chickpeas to eat this week. So I'm probably going to can these and then probably store them in the fridge just in case they don't form a seal or they don't end up being right anyway. Wipe the rim of the jar clean, remove hot lid from the saucepan and place onto the jar, remove hot ring and tighten, but do not over tighten. Place the filled jar on the jar rack in the canning pot. I don't have a canning pot, and should not touch each other. So I do have a bigger pot. I do have my stock pot that I use to make my veggie stock. I think I'll use that. After the water is in a full boil, maintain a boil for the entire time. How long? And then cool for 12 to 24 hours. But how long do I boil? This is becoming to be very frustrating. Okay, so she does say though, since I'm gonna consume this stuff relatively quick, it's fine. But if you're canning low acid foods, like my beans, you will need a pressure cooker. But if you're canning high acid foods, you don't really need. And then you do need some sort of canning rack, which you just need something to elevate the jars off the bottom of a pan, which I do have some sort of rack that I use when I make seitan. I just literally found it in somebody's bulk trash. I'll show you when I get it out later. I love this lady. She just says, put some rubber bands on your regular tongs. I'm gonna leave this article linked below. This is very helpful for beginners. DIY's zero waste version, so you don't have to go out and buy a bunch of equipment. You can literally just use what you have at home. And something else too, you cannot use a lid more than once, like the round part. You can use the spinny part and you can use the jar, but you cannot use the thin circle part more than once because of the seal. Again, since I'm going to be using all of these jars like this week, it's probably fine. But if I were to do this, something that I'm going to preserve for like a year and like keep in my pantry, definitely moving forward, it's very cheap to just buy like a little tiny box of them at the store, and then they are made of metal so you can recycle them. 30 minutes. That's green beans. Oh well, we're just gonna go for 30 minutes. I think 30 minutes should be fine. I'm totally making this up. We're gonna do 30 minutes water bath, 12 to 24 hours on the counter. I think we should be good. And then I'll let you know how it really turns out. I'm gonna leave some better resources linked down below. This is literally me experimenting. Just as a disclaimer, this is not a guide. Do not follow this video as a guide. This is an experiment. This is an experiment. Do not follow me as a guide. I am not a professional in food preservation yet. I want to be a professional one day. Do not follow this video as a guide. Follow the links below. if you want to actually learn this stuff for real. I'm not a professional. And then I'm saving the rest of the chickpea liquid. I'm actually saving it because Denahi really likes it when we add a little bit to his food. So I'm not letting this go to waste either. Anyway, here they are, at least one of them. And look, it's sealed. I'm so impressed. And it was actually really cool. One of them sealed like immediately after I took it out. And then a few of them, as I was like getting ready throughout my morning, I heard the rest of them seal. So it was really, really cool. So what I'm gonna do now for the final touch, I'm gonna write the date on here and then I guess put them in the pantry since they're completely sealed. And then if this goes well, I'm going to can the rest of my dried beans probably throughout this week or this month, just because this is so much easier than trying to, you know, cook my entire bag of dried beans and then plan throughout the week when to use them, because then they end up going bad in my fridge. This just ensures that they'll stay fresh. Learning how to freeze food myself, learning how to can food myself without a pressure cooker, which is really cool. It seemed that the 30 minutes worked really well, which I assume would work pretty well for most foods that are already at least partially cooked, especially for dried beans. Since dried beans do take a long time to cook beforehand, I wouldn't just put dried beans in your water bath for 30 minutes, because then you're gonna have really, really crunchy beans when you go to use them later. Consult those sources first. This was a learning curve that you come along and watch me do. The thing I really wanted to highlight with you is the importance of preserving food. And I wanted you to come along with me as an experiment. This wasn't a guide for you. I want this to be a stepping stone. There we go, that's the word. I want this to be a stepping stone for you on your food preservation journey. Baking your pumpkin for an hour, pureeing it, putting it in bags. It can be as complicated as that, or it can be as simple as cubing your raw pumpkin, freezing it, waiting to cook your raw pumpkin later. And of course, you know, you don't have to cook your entire bag of dried beans now. I think another thing too with food preservation, for example, I've got some apples with these spots right here. They need to be eaten like now. If we don't eat them this week, by this weekend, you could easily cut them up, freeze them, save them for later. Or do something like puree them, freeze them, save them for later. You can get really creative with food preservation, and you can do something as simple as a Google search. How to preserve apples, how to preserve broccoli, how to preserve fill in the blank. Whatever you have in your fridge going bad, type that into Google and Google will help you. The point here is how to prevent sending all of your food to landfill, or most of your food. And if you can, compost it, turn it into veggie broth. I'll leave my recipe for veggie broth linked in the description box as well. Again, I'll leave all my past resources too linked above and linked below, because I've talked about different ways to prevent food waste and the importance of preventing food waste in past videos too. So I hope that you enjoyed coming along with me and learning more ways that we can prevent food waste and avoid sending that stuff to landfill, because it is important for our wallets, it is important for the environment, and it is just important for the economy as a whole. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you enjoyed coming along with me and learning more about food preservation and learning more about more ways that we can avoid food waste. If you would like to subscribe, definitely hit that button down there. I post videos every Monday and Thursday, Japan Standard Time, which is Sunday and Wednesday, Eastern Standard Time. I live in Japan, if you didn't know that. If you'd like to learn more about me, you can check out this video up here, and if I'm out of cards, I'll leave the About Me video link down below. I think that's finally all for me. Sorry this video probably got kind of long. It was a lot of trial and error. I hope that you had some laughs. I hope that you enjoyed this video. This, like I said, was an unscheduled video, but it was a lot of fun to make. So back to my regularly scheduled content next week. And until next time, remember that the small changes you make have a big impact in the long run. Bye guys. As you can tell by the title of this video, no, something bigger than that. See, and you can still hear me over here, and you can't even see me on the camera. I bet you knew I have a microphone set up now. Ooh, this jar is perfect. Are you done being psycho? Learning how to, hopefully my hair doesn't look too stupid.